Conversations That Matter is a partner program of the Center for Dialogue at Simon Fraser University. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. Fascinating conversation this week about the cost of low living. Who do we have on as our guest today?
Adam Fair, he's the head of a nonprofit based in Toronto called Prosper Canada. They're all about financial literacy, but the bottom line is they're looking at the issue of poverty and how can we bring better education tools to those that are below the poverty line and even those that are close to the poverty line about saving, investing, and the various benefits, which I found interesting, of filing your taxes.
I know. You would think, well, I'm living below the poverty line. Who cares?
That's right. I guess our assumption is that if you're living below the poverty line, you're not making much of an income, so why would you be concerned about filing taxes? And filing taxes, as we know, is a fairly onerous activity that we all have to do on an annual basis. But he makes a very good point, Adam Fair, that you can't access a whole host of benefits that are provided by government for those that are living under the poverty line, and a whole host of tax incentives for working families or low-income families if you don't file your tax form. And so one of Prosper Canada's focus areas, training people, whether they're senior citizens or people living with disability, really whatever situation, how to file your taxes, the importance of filing your taxes on time so that you can access benefits. He uses the example of a single mother who is not accessing upwards of $10,000 in benefits and incentives because she doesn't file her taxes. It's significant dollars if you're living below the poverty line.
Well, and he said that can bring them above the poverty line. But more importantly, he gets into, like, well, what's the cost to society when you have people who live below the poverty line? And it's enormous.
It's enormous, and every taxpayer pays it. And on top of that, he talks about the churn, if you will. We just assume that there are people that are poor and then there are people that are not poor. Well, the fact of the matter is there are people moving in and out of poverty. And how many of us, particularly in places of very high cost of living and all the economic uncertainty in the last few years, that it just takes one catastrophe, losing a job or
protracted illness
in the family, and you have gone from living a very comfortable middle-class life to living under the poverty line. And so what are the mechanisms out there, and there are many of them, but people don't know about them, to save? Whether it's RSPs, RESPs, this is Prosper Canada's focus, is to improve the education. And of course, the thing we haven't mentioned here that he gets into a bit in this conversation, and the material on his website shows, is getting folks that are living under the poverty line off of these check cashing operations and entities that thrive on folks that are living under the poverty line, and getting them into normal banks. And Van City here in Vancouver has the Pigeon Park Bank, where they have people specially trained to work with those under the poverty line to help them start savings accounts. Incentive programs to match dollars that people put into savings accounts. These are all the things that are working, and Prosper Canada is trying to expand across country.
I like the fact that he says it's something that you may think doesn't affect you.
That's right.
But it does, and in many ways, health, crime, and so on.
Absolutely. Well, anybody that lives in Vancouver who's paying a mortgage knows the economic uncertainty that comes with the price tag associated with that mortgage.
Right. Great conversation. Welcome.
Thank you.
When we take a look at the issue around poverty in Canada, how bad is it right now?
I think 1 in 7 people right now are living in poverty.
1 in 7?
Yeah, they say Stats Canada says right now that about 4.8 million are living in poverty. So I think it's an issue that affects most people within their sphere of influence.
How is it possible that the numbers are that high in a country that so many consider to be a land of plenty?
I don't know. It's surprising, and it's something that we work tirelessly to figure out how we can change the course of that. In a country that is so wealthy and prosperous, how is it that we cannot find a way to share that wealth and well-being and that opportunity for all Canadians? And so that's really what Prosper Canada's mission is trying to do, is figure out how we can improve the lives of those that are living on low income right now.
What are the factors that contribute to people living below the poverty line? Like, because I know they're complex, but what are some of them? And then let's talk about how do we start to address those to help people realize their full potential.
Right. We often work on the financial dimension of poverty, and one of the issues right now is that the cost of living is going up. And in a lot of main cities, Vancouver, Toronto, some of these major cities, it's become unaffordable to own a home or even to pay for daycare. And simultaneously, you've got wages that have been stagnating simultaneously. And also people, back in the day, someone might have had a job for life. Now people will have 5 or 6 jobs along their career. And so the flow of income coming into people's pockets is sometimes sporadic and not predictable. And so there's whole sorts of changes that are happening with the economy, with jobs, with the marketplace right now that are affecting people's ability to build wealth and well-being for themselves and their family.
When you talk about poverty from that perspective, I get the sense that you're talking about people who are just below the poverty line, yet there's many layers.
Absolutely.
What's the most important one? Where do we start? How do we start at the bottom and try and raise the floor that everybody comes up?
Right.
Or do we reach just below the poverty line and say, we're going to pull you up and therefore you're going to pull everybody else up with you?
I think you have to work on all fronts at the same time. I think there's individuals that are above the poverty line and below the poverty line that sort of can go up and down. An individual who has no savings or who is over leveraged with debt may be living a comfortable middle-income lifestyle, but one shock, a loss of job, an illness can drop them right down into poverty. So we need to be thinking about those individuals and how we support people to build assets, wealth, and well-being, and that resilience so that they don't fall into poverty. Those that have fallen down, we need to find those opportunities to help them back on their feet, help them get back into the job market, build savings, build wealth, for sure. We also have an obligation and an opportunity to help those that are struggling the most. And, there's a disproportionate number of First Nations individuals, people with disabilities, newcomers, families with children that are really struggling because they've got multiple barriers. We need to do more for those individuals. And I think they can also contribute to society and economy, and they want to. That's what we're realizing across the country. They want to be involved.
Well, okay, I can hear some people who will watch this go, well, why should I care? Like, I worked hard to get where I am in life.
Yeah.
Why should I care about them? Can't they just work harder or do what I did?
Right.
Like, it's not my problem.
Sure. I think what we're starting to realize is that our economy is built on all of these individuals across the country doing well. It's not just a matter of the select few that have been able to build wealth and well-being. And so I think it matters to the strength of our economy, to our democracy, that everyone is participating and contributing. I think we're also starting to realize that those that have done well in their life, although it seems invisible, have benefited from little advantages, little supports. We can just think back to what allowed us to get to where we were. If we had support from a healthcare system, from a safe environment, our family that supported us to go to school. All of these things are benefits that allowed us to build the wealth that we have today. But a lot of individuals don't have those supports, or they've got barriers that are stopping them from achieving those things. So we need to figure out a better way to make our economy more inclusive to everybody.
Let's say we don't. Let's say we leave the situation the way that it is. What is the cost to society of carrying the weight of collective poverty?
Right.
It's not like it's like, well, you don't have and I do. That's your
Right.
problem. It's not mine.
Right.
It really is all of our problems.
Absolutely.
What does it cost us when we have that portion of the population in poverty?
Right.
Because there is a cost, financial and a societal cost as well.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, when people are struggling, when they're not making ends meet, the demand for government programs, for income supports, for social services goes to the roof, and those are really expensive. And we also know there's a connection between wealth and income and your health. And so if people are not doing well, it's going to put strains and constraints on our healthcare system, and that's something that we treasure as a country. And so all of these issues are going to compound our ability to make sure that all of these supports, healthcare, safety are available to all Canadians. And so, and I think we can just look to not too long ago to the U.S. in 2008 when their recession hit, and they realized that having a citizenship that's over leveraged can really sort of have the bottom drop out of the economy, and we've been really dealing with that stagnation since till today. And so we need to care about the financial health of all Canadians, because if we don't, if we neglect it, if the indicators are going in the wrong direction, we can be really surprised, and we think that we're protected in Canada, but we can see the same thing happen here. So.
I want to touch on a point that you just made about health. I was reading that the cost to healthcare annually in servicing people who are below the poverty line is astronomically high. I read a figure of up to $30 billion annually.
Right.
So if we help people get out of poverty and be in a position to realize their potential, and they're healthier,
Yeah.
is there not a huge savings right there?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're actually working on a program right now with some doctors in Toronto who have realized the best thing they can prescribe to their low-income patients is income. So they're realizing that a lot of the low-income patients that are coming through the door that are having all sorts of health issues are also not accessing the benefits that are available to them through their provincial government or their federal government. So they're realizing that they actually can play a role to identify that this individual's in poverty, see what benefits they're getting or not, and then actually prescribe them income. And so we're trying to figure out how we can leverage the healthcare sector in order to do more work in this area, because they've actually found that connection that, if we help people with this dimension, the social determinants of health, we can actually reduce the costs on healthcare in a really big way.
So another area that I think is fundamentally or profoundly affected by poverty is criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Police, courts, jails. When people don't have money, they find some way to survive.
Yeah.
I've been in a number of communities across the country lately, and you get into some where the economy is not providing for the majority of citizens, and you can feel it on the street, and it's not always it's not a pleasant feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's hard. If you're living, with these constraints, if you're having difficulty making ends meet, if you are really struggling to break into the mainstream economy, you sort of, people make bad decisions, and so it's a huge cost on society.
Unfortunately, I got to take just a quick little break here. We'll be right back just after this. Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program. Thank you. So we can agree that, yes, getting people out of poverty is a good idea. But how do we do it? Like, what are the components that have to be in place to help somebody help themselves?
Right.
It's not a handout, it has to be a hand up. So what's the program or the process that you're advocating that you say we need to follow?
Right. And I'd like to think that there would be one program or one initiative or one tax benefit that would help sort of make all of this better.
But if life were only that simple,
right.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think what we're realizing is, and I think there's a real energy and momentum that's happening right now, is saying let's agree that we want to improve the financial health of all Canadians. We have an obligation and an opportunity to do that. If we agree on that, then it's a matter of bringing all those players from the different sectors together, the banks, government, nonprofit organization, and say, let's tackle this together. Let's work together, not only on figuring out what are those programs, initiatives that we could pursue, but what can we do in our own sphere of influence? Which policies can I make if I work at the government to figure out how I can support individuals to save and build their assets and and build their wealth? And from a financial institutions, and I know you you had an interview with Tamara at Advanced City. How,
Yes.
as a financial institution, what can I do to better serve my members so that I'm making sure that I'm not just providing the products, but also helping them to move towards a greater trajectory. And nonprofits are innovating in this space, and they're looking for those partners to figure out how can we work together to all be tackling this issue from our own vantage point, because we know we're going to have a bigger impact if we work as a collective.
So what are the components of your plan going forward? Like, how do we empower people financially to start to make better decisions and then start to get ahead
of that curve, because once you start to fall behind, it gets harder and harder to get back on top of it.
Exactly. So we try and tackle it from different dimensions. The first one, which I'd mentioned earlier, is we haven't been able to crunch the numbers yet just because the data is so hard to get, but there's over $1 billion of benefits that aren't going into the pockets of those that are qualify and are eligible for these benefits. So we want to get...
When you say benefits, you're talking about through government programs.
Government programs, supports, tax credits, supports for child care, all of those supports the government to create. People have to tax file, they have to apply for those benefits. They're not getting them. So that's a quick way that as communities we can help to make sure that people are getting that money. There's an organization in Toronto that helped over 6,000 clients file taxes, access benefits, and they leveraged $13 million in the lowest income Torontonians' pockets. And so we need to get people's money up if we can, and then we have to help them make a financial plan and figure out how they can best use those resources to not only pay for their daily needs, but also start supporting opportunities to save and build assets for them and their kids.
You touched on filing a tax return. Is that because a lot of people who are living below the poverty line fail to file taxes?
There's a good percentage that aren't filing their taxes. There's a lot of...
Is that because they just go, what's the point? I'm not making enough money, so who cares?
There's definitely a financial literacy problem in the country that happens at all income levels, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around what tax filing is and the benefits of doing it. And there are a percentage of low-income people that think, I don't make a lot of money, therefore I shouldn't owe taxes, therefore I shouldn't file. But our social safety net more and more is happening through the tax system. So people have to file in order to be eligible for all the different federal and provincial benefits.
So that's the way that they can demonstrate eligibility.
Exactly. And not only do they demonstrate eligibility directly for getting those federal and provincial benefits, it's the eligibility criteria that they would need when they show up at the door at social services to say, I am eligible for this program and support. And so we're just starting to scratch the surface on how important filing your taxes is and how much of a gateway it is towards building your financial security.
On the surface it sounds so, well, but of course. But then if you're in that situation where you're barely making ends meet, I can see why you would say, who cares?
Yeah.
But it matters.
It matters. If you're a single mother on social assistance in Ontario, for example, you're going to, if you don't file your taxes, it's over $10,000 that you're missing out on, which is about 40% of your income.
That you wouldn't be eligible for.
That you wouldn't get if you didn't file your taxes. So it's a lot of money, and it matters to individuals. And so, step one for us is allowing people and giving access and supporting people to the benefits that are available to them and that they're eligible for. And it's been so amazing to realize that in all sectors there actually isn't that many people that can help people navigate these systems, file their taxes, and really work through these different government programs.
I wish we could keep going here but I gotta just ask you to hold on for 1 second while we take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program. Thank you.
Is that because there aren't services that are dedicated to helping people who are not above the poverty line, who can afford to go to an accountant and say, help me out?
Right.
And so therefore, they're just on their own?
Yeah, well, so there are volunteer tax clinics across the country, which is a really impressive model of how to distribute this support to low-income individuals. But it's not in every community and not to the same degree. But we're realizing everyone needs guidance, everyone needs financial support, everyone needs help to navigate the system, everyone needs help to set those goals and figure out what I should do with my money now in order to be where I want to be 5 years from now. The financial support and the people that give advice right now, they're for-profit organizations, and so there's a fee that's connected to it, or you need to have a bank product with that particular institution. So for those that don't have resources, there actually is not many people to go to help you navigate these systems.
So what role then do banks and financial institutions play in helping make this happen? Because for a lot of people, you start to sink below the poverty line, you stop having a bank account.
Right.
You don't have that
Right.
other sort of component in being able to say,
Right.
I am a contributor or a solid member of our society.
Yeah.
How important is the role of financial institutions?
I think that's the debate that's happening right now. Like, whose role is this right now? If we know financial institutions are businesses, we know that they provide advice to their clients, but we also realize that financial products and advice are designed for people with money. And so if people don't have resources or as many resources, who's going to support those individuals? I think what we're seeing, and you saw it from the interview with Tamara and some of the other financial institutions, is that there's a real interest in trying to support their clients. And some are even saying that the new competitive advantage for financial institutions isn't selling the products or having the best price. It's actually providing services that people need that help them build their financial health. And that means all of the clients that they work with. So I think right now we're in a dialogue with financial institutions to say, how can we do more? How can we support you to build the capacities and design the products that are going to be useful for all of your clients? Because low-income individuals use financial services all the time. But like you heard from the Tamara interview, when they actually looked internally, they're not meeting all the needs of their clients right now. They're actually having to supplement their bank account and their credit card with other services like payday loans and other high-cost products because they don't exist right now.
Well, for a number of people who are struggling, they also are the targets of financial predators. They pay an inordinately high cost to borrow money to get through the next week or two.
Yeah, we did a project in Toronto trying to help people that were living in homeless shelters basically learn financial skills, connect them to a bank account, help them save for first and last month's rent, because that was the big barrier for them. And one of the quotes that one of the gentlemen said, they talked about the high cost of low living. He says, everything costs more. You have to go, when you can't get your services through mainstream financial institutions, you end up paying exorbitant fees. And so how can we better understand those financial product and services needs of low-income people and then innovate, find new models? It's not going to be easy, but you need institutions to try to partner with community-based organizations to say, how can we do better?
The high cost of low living, what a remarkable bit of insight. I guess it only comes from having been there.
You pay, you think of how you save money. You buy bulk, you can wait, you can have a certain balance in your account, therefore fees can be waived. But if you're paying everything, one time, it's costly. And if so individuals are paying huge amounts for financial services right now, sometimes because they just don't know and no one's helped them sort of set up direct deposit. We did a focus group with this, clients at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and these are individuals that were really struggling with mental health issues, and we were talking about, contributing and volunteering and financial literacy, and they really wanted to learn this stuff, even though they weren't employed right now. And one of the gentlemen had set up direct deposit and therefore wasn't paying 10% off the top of his check, and all of the other guys around the room wanted to know more about that. And so sometimes it's really just about giving an opportunity for all individuals to learn how to better set up themselves financially.
One last break, and we'll be right back. See you in a moment.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program. Thank you.
You're talking about financial literacy, which you would think would be somewhat common knowledge. But is it?
I don't think so. No, I think for those of us who, for people that have been lucky enough to find a stable job and build a level of wealth, I think we all make financial mistakes, but you just have enough slack and you just have enough support that you bounce back. And some individuals, if they don't have savings or if they're dealing with a level of vulnerability, one illness, one job loss, one mistake can make all the difference. And so I think we all have an opportunity to learn more around financial literacy, but we're realizing it's not just about education. People actually need to learn real skills, people need supports. And education doesn't happen at one time. Education needs to happen when you're actually making a financial decision. And from different places as well. You can get it at home, you can get it at school, but you need to be able to get it when you're at the financial institution or talking to a government agent or even working at a community-based organization.
So there are going to be people, as you and I both know, who are going to say, but the individual has their own responsibility here. And this is true. How do we help them and also help them take control of their own lives?
Right. I think the common myth is that someone who is living in poverty or living on low income, it's because a bunch of faults of their own, bad decisions, lack of motivation. And in cases that might be true, but I think we're realizing more and more poverty and low income can happen to anybody, your neighbor, your family. Individuals who are living a middle income are now retiring into poverty in some circumstances. Someone can get an illness and all of a sudden lose their employability and then all of a sudden are living in poverty. Kids that are coming out of school with $30,000 debt and can't get a job are living in poverty. So the face of poverty is totally changing. And so I think we're starting to realize that we need new solutions to help individuals. It's not just about bad choices that people make. I think a lot of us make bad choices at all income levels. But just like health, we know now that we need to eat well, we need to exercise, but we also really depend on our government and our financial institutions to help as well, create a healthy environment, make sure that the water is safe. And so there's always an institutional role and there's always an individual role. We're working hard to support individuals to make positive financial choices, but we need the institutions, the governments, the financial institutions to step up and say, it's not just because of the bad decisions they made. We have a role as well to make an enabling environment where more people can thrive, and when people fall on hard times, we can help them back on their feet.
So let's say we're successful here and we bring the number of people in poverty down. What's the benefit?
The benefit is it's across the board. It's really an economy that is growing. It's jobs for individuals. It's the ability to strengthen and maintain the healthcare system that we all depend upon. It's
all the best and all the luck that you're going to need to
Yeah.
make this happen, because it will be a complex and challenging journey, but if successful, we all benefit.
Yeah, I think it's the objective that we all strive for, and I think I think we'll keep working. It will never be done. It's ongoing work, but we're really looking forward to contributing.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Pleasure meeting you.
Okay.